Hello, I'm Dave with Dave and Sonya, Michigan. I want to show you what I have going on here with my freeze dryer, my vacuum pump, and how I've been filtering the oil since 2020. I'm going to show you what I have going on, plus I'm going to show you the upgrade I'm going to do. So it's 2024 now, but I'm going to upgrade this to make it even a little bit more robust. So let me show you what I have going on. So this is the newer premium pump. It's a lot quieter than the old JB pumps that these used to come with, and that's what I used to have on here back when I started. September of 2020 was when I put this setup on here. Back then I had a JB pump. So when I cleaned the pumps was February of 21, and then I did it again October of 2021. And then in November, I put the new pump on. So that pump quit working. The filtering that I had on here, it actually, you could see it really good. It was filtering, it stayed clear. And it was also pulling the water out. So I could pull the water out. Back then, I think they said you should clean those pumps every 4 or 5 cycles. But I could tell I was pulling water out every time. And then the oil stayed clear all the time. So I didn't worry about it much. You can see, like I said, I went almost 10 months. But I had the same setup on that pump. I had a drain at the bottom. I had to modify the unit so I could put a drain on the bottom. I also had to modify this one. So when it come in, I took the drain off. I put a elbow in here. I got extension so I could drain it. I could slide it over the edge of the table. I could drain it out if I need to. Since I put the new pump on in November 2021, so that's been November of 2023, I guess, has been 2 years, and now we're in January. So 2.5 years. I've never completely drained the pump. I always let the filter take care of it. So I never had to use this drain, but I have it over top of the edge of the pan. I got a hose attached to a nipple. I got a gear clamp on here, but just so we don't cut our hand on the clamp, I put some electrical tape around it. And then you might not be able to see back here, there's actually a fuel pump. I'll show that to you in a second. And that fuel pump pushes the oil from this line into the fuel pump. So this line here goes into the fuel pump, and out of the fuel pump it comes in to the inlet of the filter. The outlet of the filter just comes right back around, and then I have it going. So again, I had to modify the pump. So I bought the brand new pump, $800, some oil, and I modified it. So I probably voided the warranty. But I put this little nipple in here. I got a nut on the back side, and I got my 1/4-inch oil line. So the return filtered oil comes into the top. So the dirty oil I'm pulling off the bottom, returning the oil into the top. So this is going to also help keep the oil cooler a little bit. But I also have just the cheap little fan that I have, and I'll leave it right here. It just helps cool the motor while it's running, or the pump while it's running. The motor I don't really care about too much, but just the pump, I don't want it to get too hot. The difference between the Premier pump and the old pumps, you used to get a lot of vapor coming off. They have the tube coming out here, and when it started up, you'd get a lot of blow off and the oil would collect. So that was the reason why I put the tray underneath, because that was always a mess, that pump. So this filter comes on the new pump. It actually works out pretty good. You don't get the vapor floating around as much. But I've always had, so for the 2.5 years, I've always had the tray underneath, and I put paper towels down here to collect anything. So I've always had some, but this is a lot of oil, hence the reason why the upgrade. So this fuel pump back here has created a leak, so it's starting to drip. So I bought another. I actually got 2 of these now. But this is really the only thing I've really had to maintain. Like I said, I haven't changed this filter since I put it on. But I think I've gone through 3 pumps now. This will be the 3rd one. So I'm on my 4th pump. They're $10. So it's a fuel pump. So the oil is a little bit thicker than the fuel. So it's probably a little bit harder on the pump, but it's enough to cycle through. So my upgrade that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to install a second one of these, and then I'm going to install 2 pumps to make sure that I'm pumping enough flow through. And then this pump right now is laying horizontally, so I think some of the air might actually get stuck inside of the top of the pump. So I'm going to stand those pumps up this time vertically, and we'll see if that does anything else. But a couple of other components here. So this is a 12-volt power supply, like for your laptop. So it actually has the laptop cord end on it. I just got an adapter so I have 2 screw terminals, and that goes to the pump, and it also sends power to my timer. So my timer I have on here, so I can set it. I can set the increment. So if I want it to be on 15 minutes, off 15 minutes, I can program that on here. It can be on 15 minutes, off 30 minutes. So I can set either how long it's on or how long it's off. So I have that, and that controls the pump. And then I have this box here. What I do is on the back of the unit, you plug it into the wall. So I have the power here, plug power into the wall here. And then when this decides it wants to turn on the pump, it actually has an outlet on the back that will cycle on to turn on the pump here. So you would plug the pump directly into the back of the freeze dryer. So what I did is I put a box here on the side. I have power coming from that outlet that's behind here. It comes into this box. It goes to the switch. And I also have power coming from this outlet going to this box. So when this is in the down position, I'm letting this control everything. When I flip this into the up position, I then now getting power directly from here, and I'm bypassing this. So if I want to work on this, I can just turn this on. Or if I want to turn vacuum on before this does, which can shorten the cycle, I can then flip the switch on. So this turned on right away. This takes a second to turn on, but the pump turned on. So I can run this way with the switch, with that in the on position. Let me do this again. I'll turn back on. With it in the on position, I can turn the pump off itself, and then it's still letting the filter run. So right now the filter's running. You might be able to hear it. So it's running. So then I could be filtering the oil if I need to. So let me give you a little closer up look. I'm going to show you 2 things. I'm going to show you where the fuel pump is. I don't think I'm filtering out water anymore. So I want to show you what the display here looks like. So back down in here, this is the fuel pump. So in on the left, out on the right. I have just gear clamps holding on the hose. I just have it bolted to the holes that are perforated in the side of the unit. I want to make sure it wasn't blocking too much of the airflow. So I got to clean some of it. When I pull it off, I'll clean it. But I left the center of it open. That's where the grills are on the inside. That helps for the cooling. So this time I'm probably going to block off some of that, but I don't think I have an issue with it getting hot, or if I'm blocking off too much of the airflow. You can still see there's room behind the filter. I'm going to show you the oil. So the oil's kind of milky right now. And then when I turn on the filter, well, the filter's on right now. So that oil with water in it is being sucked up inside of here into the filter. And this is the cup I would use. If it's underneath, I would open this to drain the water off, and I'll collect the water and oil in here. Don't know if you can see it, but this is the in. So you can't see the dirty oil, the water water that's in the oil, you can't really see through it. This is the filtered oil. You can partially see my fingernail through there. So you can see the dirty oils filtering through here, and then the clean oil filter through here. So what will happen if we run a batch that's really got a lot of moisture in it, you'll start to see it collect in the screen here. And then I'll run this after we're done. For the most part, most of the time, just running this on a normal cycle would filter enough of the oil and I wouldn't have to do that. The last two, maybe three cycles, I noticed that it's been cloudy. And then when I go to drain, I haven't been noticing much of the water come out. So hence why I'm gonna, one, at least change the filter, which is probably all I had to do. But two, I'm gonna put a second filter on, and then what I'll do is probably once a year, because I'm in 2024 right now. So we'll dispose of the dirtiest filter first, which is the one going through the oil going through filtered first. I'll have the second one over here. I'll take that one, move it over here. I'll put the brand new filter here. So once a year, I'll move them. I'll get rid of this one, put a brand new one here. So then it'll be at least a pre-filter. This filter should last longer. It should filter more water out the second time. This will get most of it. I can make sure I'm getting all the water out through the second filter. Show you one more thing. So this is the oil cup I pulled off before. So normally the oil cup is underneath here. I'll let the oil drain into the cup. I'll open it up, drain it. So if there's any water in there, but I don't want to throw the oil away, I want to reuse the oil. So you put the whole cup in the freezer. And this one, majority of the oil is in there. I'm not sure how much water is in there. A lot of times water will be up to here and only have a little bit of oil. But because I don't think I'm getting much water off of here, there might not be any water in here. So what you do though is the water would freeze and the oil would not freeze. So after it's frozen, I leave it in the freezer for a couple days, and then I pour it into here. This is the old style filters they used to give you. So it's an oil filter like in your car underneath here, screwed to the green lid. We pour oil into here, filters in here, and then this is clean oil. Let me see if there's any water in here. So the oil won't freeze, but the water does. So in the bottom of this, from here down, is how much water was in the oil. If I was to put the in here when it was still room temperature, the water would filter through here and I'd have water down here. So if you leave this sit long enough, you'd see the water in the bottom, the oil on the top. But how do you prevent that from getting back into here? So that's what you do is freeze this. Water freezes, oil comes off. I'll try to get a little bit more off. And then I'll dispose of the ice, let it melt, and then I'll dispose of it. So now let me start taking this apart, and then I'll show you how I'm going to upgrade it. So I'm going to drain the oil out of here first. Just loosen up this. It's dripping. It's going to be slow. That's all the way open. So let that drain. Having that shelf there in the tray works out pretty nice. So this is all the oil from the pump. So it looks like we got a lot of water in it. We'll let it set and we'll see if we can see how much water is at the bottom, how much oil is at the top. I also have, I can show you the drip coming right from the fuel pump. That's why I'm doing this upgrade today. So it's been a couple days. I had to order some parts. I got most of them on Amazon. So I'll put a link to these items in the description below. But this was the oil that was inside the pump, and it was cloudy before, a little bit milky, so I thought I had some water in it. It actually looks like it's a lot of oil, and there's just a little bit of water on the bottom. So I'm going to put this in the freezer, and then it'll freeze the water, and then I'll save the oil and put it back in the other filter. And this one up here is oil, and then the dirty liquid down here in the bottom is going to be the water. So I'll freeze that also. This will turn solid, and I'll pour the oil into the filter. So we'll reuse that oil. So let me get that in the freezer, and then I'll show you what I have here. So I have two filters. So these are just regular filters for fuel filter water separator, and this has a thread, a gasket on there. But the tricky part was this part. So I'm going to have two on there this time. But this is what come on the unit originally. And you can see the little groove there at the top. That's when you unscrew it and it comes off of this seal. That's what would let the water come out. But it never come out very easily on here. So what I did was, this is one that I modified. You can see I put a much wider groove in there, and then I have it on an angle. So it slopes from barely removing any material at the bottom. I remove a lot at the top. So as I screw it out further, the hole gets to be a little bit bigger. And that way I don't have to unscrew it all the way, and then the water will come out. When it was like this, I had to unscrew it all the way out in order to get the water to come out. So that was probably the worst thing about this whole setup and the mess you get. No matter how good you try to stay clean, you're still going to get oil over the place. So that's why I use the cookie sheets, put it underneath the pump, and I put rags in there. So I'll capture some of the oil. So I need to modify this cap. I'll do that later. But I wanted to show you the component. So there's a little gasket, rubber gasket you got to make sure you have in there. This is the base. So these three screw holes will mount to the freeze dryer. There's a plug, two plugs, and they didn't come with the brass fitting, so those will be in the description too. So I had to buy those. But these plugs will go into two of the ports, and then I put fittings in two of them. So I have to put Teflon tape on there, screw those back in. But they have arrows, so both of these on this side, the bottom, are in. So oil comes in here, and then the clean oil will come out up here. So I want the oil to come in from the left, come out on the right on the second filter. The first filter is still on here, and I have the plug on both on the left, and I have the in and the out right next to each other up here on the top. So these filters come with a little rubber gasket. You have to make sure you put that on the threads first. On the other one, it was already on, so I'll make sure I take the old gasket off, and I'll put the new one on there. Make sure this gasket's on here, and then I'll put a little bit of oil on it, on here also, so when I screw it on, it's not dry when it's screwing on there. This is the fuel pump. It's the same one that was bad, and I think I've replaced, I think it was this one. No, it was a different brand before this one. So I have two identical ones. I'm putting both of these on there. So I've had one of this style go bad already. Maybe I should have picked a different model. I think they're $11. So if they go bad again, it's not that expensive to replace them. So this time I'm going to try to, instead of doing them horizontally like I did the last time, I'm going to go vertically with them. I'm thinking there might have been some air trapped on the inside. I don't know if that would have done any damage to it or not. It did seem like it would have a hard time priming. So what I'm trying to do this time, invert it this way. I'm also going to lower this. So this is actually lower. It should be relatively level with the pump, the oil that's in the pump. So when the oils come on the bottom, they come out the hose, it's going to come up in here. There should already be enough pressure from the pump to keep the level up here, and this doesn't have to suck it up. So it might have been up a little bit too high before. I'm going to have this down lower. Also, there's a little electrical connection. Last time I just cut it off and I wired it into, I have a plug that comes off of the 12-volt power supply. It's like for your laptop. This time I think I'm going to wire this end into it, and then I can unplug this if I need to. So what I think I'm going to have to do is oil will come in to this one first. It'll go into the first filter, come out of this filter, and I'm going to have it go into this filter next. I'm going to come out of this filter, and I'll mount the second one upside down, so in will be on the top. I'll have it come in, and then out will go back to the pump. So the first fuel filter is really going to push the oil in through both filters. The second pump is going to pull, it's going to suck the oil through both filters. I was going to put it also here in the middle so I could pump it into the second one. It just doesn't fit on here really good, and I don't really think it matters. Most people probably think it would be better to push it into the pump, into the filter. But I think there would be an advantage of me having this after the filter. It's not going to get dirty either. So it'll be clean oil filtered twice through both filters. This one's really going to be the dirty oil running through, all of it will be running through this. So similarly, I will probably, once every maybe 6 months, I'll pull this filter off, discard it. I'll move this one over, since this one had been primarily pumping clean oil through it. I'm going to move it over to this location, and I'll put a brand new filter on here. So I'll get some life off of this filter again in the second home. But I'll be curious to see if, I'm going to suspect, this pump will go bad before this one, because this one's going to have the dirty oil in it. And I will be able to do the same thing. I could move this one over to here and put another new filter, new pump on this side. So another thing to mention is I got some new hose, and this is the same hose I bought last time. But you can see I'm not putting much force to it, but it's pretty flexible. It's clear. You can actually see the bubbles run through the hose. So the air bubbles, as it's pumping through, it's pushing the oil out of here. The air has to get out. You can see it as it's going through. Especially after you drain the oil, you get air pockets in here, and then it starts pumping through, and you got a bunch of air bubbles coming through. So you can just watch it come through. But as I was taking everything apart, I was planning on reusing all the hose, but this hose is really stiff. So I decided I'm going to just upgrade it. So it's, I forget what I said, like 3 years old. I mean, it's really flexible because I got more fittings. I got some more gear clamps. So they're the small gear clamps. And I'm going to start mounting all this on here. I'm going to actually raise this one up. So I'm going to move this up a little bit. I'll raise this one up 3 or 4 rows of holes. So it'll give me a little bit more room underneath here. I really like using the small mason jars, the pint-sized jars. If I could just barely get underneath there, I'd have to tip it sideways a little bit to get it underneath. So then I was just using those small cups, and they work. If I raise it up a little bit, I could use some of the glass mason jars I can put that on both of these. If I raise both these up just a little bit, this is going to have to come up. And I didn't drill any holes in here. I'm just using the holes that are inside here. So these zip ties, I have them in the top hole. So I'm going to try to push this up a little bit, which the bottom of the zip tie will have to go in a couple of holes higher, but the top one will still be in the top hole. So it might not set on there perfectly flat, but I'll get a little bit more room here. And I'm going to have to also raise this box up. So I'm going to open it up and I'll show you how I wired that so that I have either power from here controlling the pump, or I can have power from here controlling the pump. So if it's power from here, the pump can stay on all the time. If it's controlled from here, it's only going to be on after the load freezes. So what happens if I get a lot of water in the oil and I want to run this longer, I can flip the switch, turn on the vacuum pump, which also powers my 12-volt power supply here in my meter. So then it'll cycle my fuel pumps to filter the oil some more. So that helps get the moisture out ready for the next load. I don't have this running constantly, so I think the last settings I had in here, it's 45-minute cycles, and it runs for 15 minutes during that 45. So it'll run for 15 minutes, and then it'll be off for 30 minutes, and it'll run for 15 minutes. So I'm running it 33% of the time. When I was first starting off doing it, I was running it 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off, so 50% cycle. You can do 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. It's still 50% cycle. I chose to go with longer run times. And then my oil was always really clean up till the very end there. So I left it off for 30 minutes. So on for 15, off for 30. So one more thing to show you before I start moving stuff around is most of these screws, I use elastic stop nuts. So they have a plastic insert at the top. And what that does is when it goes on to the screw, the threads go in easy at first, and once it hits the plastic, then it's like a lock nut. So I don't have to worry about the nuts falling off or coming loose when they're inside the unit. So when I first did this, I made it look pretty. I had all the hex sides of the bolt sticking on the outside. Any of the threads that were sticking out beyond the nut, I cut them off. In this area, you don't have to cut them off, but where the cooler fins are, if the screw was sticking through, I didn't want it to hit in here. I could just have the nut on the back side, and then I don't have to worry about that. Then the threads stick out on this side. It just don't look as pretty. Now that I'm going to put some stuff in the middle where this unit is, I'm probably going to have to do that. I'll have to have the nuts on the outside, the extra length of the threads on the outside, just so I don't do any damage to the coils here. So let me get the box open and I'll show you what's inside the box. So this is my box opened up. These are the two cords that I have that feed into this box. So this one would plug right into the freeze dryer in the back. So I stick it in the back. This is up against the wall, so it's a little kinked. You'd probably come up with a better way for that. You could buy a 90-degree plug and it comes straight down. Those often come off like on a 45, but that would probably work even better. This other one just plugs into the outlet right here, which then it would be hot all the time. This one, because it's plugged into the back of the freeze dryer is controlling it. So it decides when it wants to turn on the vacuum pump. But if you want to be able to control it either through the freeze dryer or turn it on yourself, that's what I got here. I have this switch and then one outlet. It's a duplex, but one would go to the vacuum pump And in this case, I have one going to the 12-volt power supply that's running my fuel pumps. And then anything else that I would want to plug into that. So in that case, I just have a 3-way splitter. One I happen to have is a surge suppressor, so I'm not using it for the surge suppressor purpose. But I guess if something was to happen, the 12-volt power supply would be protected, so it would be surge suppressor. But that's not the intent that I used this for. I just needed an additional outlet. I actually have a cooling fan that while the freeze dryer is running, the fan is running and it's blowing across the vacuum pump to help keep it a little bit cool. So that's why I have the splitter. But to show you what I got on the inside, so this was a light switch. It's a 3-way light switch. So there's one common port, and then there's two other ports, screws. So I have, this is one cord, this is the other cord. So one cord goes to one screw, the other cord goes to the other screw. When I flip the switch, say it connects this one to this one, and I flip it the opposite way, it then connects this wire to this wire. So it's only going to use one or the other, and then it comes out the common wire, which I have as a solid wire, comes down to the hot side of the electrical outlet, so the gold color screws. The two neutrals, the white wires from both cords, go to the other side, the silver screws. The grounds go to the ground screw, and I just have them separated on the screws. They're connected through the plate. This ground is screwed into the side of the box. One thing to note here, these are stranded wires. So when you pull the end off, you have 7 or 9 strands. Twist those together. They don't want to stay underneath the head of the screw. So what you do is you just strip back just a little bit farther, and then you leave, so maybe about 1.25 inches. You strip back 3/4 of an inch, and you don't pull it all the way off. So you leave that on there, the little piece you stripped, and then you can twist it up pretty tight, wrap it around the screw, and this keeps the ends from flaring away and coming out from underneath the screws. So I have that on all of the ones that have the stranded wires. A trick I learned a long time ago. But now I'll put this box back together, and I'm going to move this box up. So there's 5 rows of screw holes. So I'm going to move that up. I'll move this power supply up. I'll move this up, and I'll start mounting the others. So I'm going to start doing that right now. So I have everything mounted on here now, and I have 2 more fittings to put on. I want to show to make sure that you don't put any Teflon tape on the first thread, so when you screw it in, you don't get pieces on the inside. I already got these 2 tight. I got everything zip tied. Everything looks pretty again. Said I was going to have this down at the very bottom, but I need to have enough room for the hose to bend. And there's a lip on the cookie sheet that I have. I'll make sure I'll be able to get that underneath, and then if I have to, I can pull it out. So I didn't want that too close to the bottom. So it's still lower than what it was last time. Same thing, I don't have Teflon tape on the first thread. So next we'll be putting the hose on. That's pretty much the last step. Well, sometimes the hose can be tricky. So if it's a tight fit, you can heat the hose up with some hot water. So heat the water up in the microwave, And you dip the hose in, it makes it a little bit softer, pliable. But since we're going to be putting on the wire clamps anyways, it actually opens it up a little bit when you do it that way. Make sure these are tight. These two I already put in. It's tight already. That was tight too. So these have, you got a pretty big nipple on them to make sure you get the hose over. Oh, I also finished these two. So this was the new one. I put the groove in that one, same as I have in that one. So make sure to put those on. These aren't tight yet on here, so I'll put some oil on there. I'll tighten those up. I have these connectors for both pumps. So I got the one close out here because I don't ever think I should need to disconnect this one. So I got that one in the back. The one in the front will be for this one. So I'll leave this one disconnected until I start to see the oil come out this side, and then I'll turn this one on. So I'll leave that disconnected right now. Let me cut some hoses and then I'll show you putting those on. So this was 1/4-inch hose, but the end of the filter is quite a bit bigger than 1/4-inch. So I already heated this in the microwave. I'm gonna put probably about an inch of this in the hot water. And then it gets soft. So I also have this flaring tool. It's just the stepped tool. I can get it so it gets a little bit bigger. Just need to get it on far enough to get the clamp on. It doesn't have to go all the way down, but you see how soft it gets. This side doesn't want to bend. It gets really soft. You can see I got it down more than halfway. We'll put 2 clamps on. I think this hose, see, this one's the in. This one's easier to go on. There's 4 barbs on there. It goes like that. So let me do, I got a long hose. I go back to the pump. Another short hose here. This one is my inlet hose to the bottom of the pump. So I have 3 more to put on. I'll put those on. I'll show you what I got. So I have this all done. So this was the oil that I froze, and we'll run this in the filter. So everything that's liquid is oil. That's what come off of this earlier, and what's down on the very bottom will be ice. So let that drain a little bit more. This is the other one where I had the dirty oil from the filter in the water, and then the top was oil. So you can see the big chunk, the bottom, that's all ice. So it's all water. And that's where the dirt was too. So that part, we'll let it melt and we'll take care of that. There's a little bit more oil in here. I'll just keep running this. I'm running this out of here every bit I can save because this oil is pretty expensive. But this will take, I don't know, maybe a day, maybe a little bit longer to run through the filter. It's just gravity fed through that filter, so it'll take a while. But after that's done running through the filter, you have this clear color to it. We'll let that just set up here on top. So everything is done. All my hoses are on, my hose fittings. I don't have this pump on yet, just this one. It is hooked up to electrical. So when I turn it on, this is back into here. This fitting, the brass fitting that goes into here, I had to drill a hole into here and then tap this hole. A little bit of Teflon tape on there. And then I actually used some glue to glue the washer down. Kind of helped to hold it in there a little bit better. So that was goop. So use that on there. And then same thing down here. When you open this, it allowed for the oil that's in here to drain out. I took that out, put this 90-degree fitting in there. And this has been like 3 years. I can't remember if I tapped the hole or if it was already tapped. But either way, you might need to get 2 taps to be able to tap a hole. But if you're doing this setup, you're voiding the warranty anyways. So you just got to make sure you drill a hole in here where it's not interfering with anything. This is the little muffler that's on top. You got to make sure it's not going to get in your way. This down here, you just need to make sure it's extended out far enough. I still have the drain port on here, so I could drain it if I need to. But I tee off with the hose that goes out. This is lower than the lip of my cookie sheet, so I had to bend the lip of the cookie sheet to get this to set flat on here. I didn't want it to rest on the brass, so it's resting on the feet. I'm going to put the oil. This has been recycled oil, so I'm going to get that in here so I can start the pump, and I'll show you my main point for having that electrical switch there on the side. I want to be able to turn this on and off. So I'm not up there yet. I want to be able to turn this on and off. I can probably turn it on while I'm filling this. I don't have the pump plugged in yet because I just want to run my fuel pump. So right here is the liquid coming up. Actually coming up pretty quick. It's coming right here. Now it's into the filter. It's going to take a little bit to fill this one up, and then I'll start to see it come out. But we'll make sure we keep putting enough oil in here. The pump's not running, so it doesn't matter if I have enough in there right now, if I let it go low. So I'm up above max, so I'll just go a little bit more. We'll let it pump. I'll pump for a little bit. Should start to see it come through this line. Once it starts coming through this line, I'll turn on the other pump. I'll just plug it in. When this is running, this will get warmer. So when this gets warm, the oil is thinner, so it'll be easier to pump through. But that started coming through pretty easy. This was just the old fan I had lying around. But this is what I said I have plugged into the other port up there at the top. Before I had it on this side, I would just blow on the side. Probably now, I'll just put it over here. So I have the vacuum hose up here hooked up too, and I've had it in the past where it has a big loop coming up and it comes down. And sometimes I think that there might be some oil that gets stuck in there or some water that gets stuck in there. So I like to try to have it gradually slope downhill all the way back in here. So I have a little wire tie on here just to help hold this down just a little bit so I can keep that gradual slope. And if whether there's oil in here or water. It was more so on the old hose, which was the larger diameter, the clear, it had the spring on the inside. You could actually see what looked like there was oil on the inside of it. I couldn't ever really get it to drain out. It could have been an optical illusion, but switching to this newer black hose really helped out a lot. This fitting used to be finicky. If you got it too tight, it would leak. If it wasn't tight enough, it would still leak. This one's got an O-ring in it. And this one just seems like it works a lot better. So, gradual slope down here. Not coming through yet. We'll let that go for a few minutes. Actually, I can see the level coming down here, so I know it's sucking some in there. I wanted to raise these up so I could get a small canning jar underneath here and still be able to open this. So it was too hard. I could only get in there with one finger before. So now I can get 3 fingers in there. I can open this to drain it. I got 2 jars positioned there. They don't need to be there right now. So I'm not going to drain it for a little while, but oil's starting to come right now. There's an air pocket right here, but the oil is just now getting into the second filter. Curious to see if it's going to be enough to push this air pocket out. Looks like it's going to. If not, I'll tip the hose so that it doesn't have to fight gravity, but I want to see if it'll push it. You can see small bubbles coming up, so that air pocket's getting smaller. The entire air pocket is gone now. It just went through. I'll let that go. So it's been 26 minutes pumping to get oil through the first filter. Probably going to take a little bit longer to get it through the second one because now it's got to go through twice the resistance. I don't want to turn this pump on until I get oil in it because I don't want to run it dry. It might help me get it through quicker, but it'll be running dry. So I want to let this one push it till I get oil over here, and then I'll turn this one on. The oil is just coming out of the final filter. It's making it to the pump. It's actually coming up right here right now. I'm going to plug the pump in. You can see the final bubbles there. Let me zoom in for you. Final stretch. See the bubbles coming out now. Just below max now, so I got the right amount of oil in there. So this is complete. Put this on. I got my dates on here. On this filter, 6 months, maybe a year. Maybe a year. I'll pull this one off and I'll move this one over. I think I went 2 years, or I think I've had it for 3 years. I replaced the filter once. I went 2 years that last time. This clamp is a little bit too high. You lower it. It still hits, then I'll have to rotate the gear to the other side. That's good. Let me just run this, see, make sure the vacuum pump is working. Turn the switch on. Pump is working. So it just sucked down some of the oil too, so I'll probably put more oil in there. Close that. Just close the drain hose too. Still see some bubbles coming through. See, right now this is a little bit different color. So I don't know if it's got some air bubbles in it, or maybe there's still some moisture in from the first time around. So we'll let this run and it'll start getting some clean oil on the inside. Let me show you. This looks like it's a little whitish, like maybe there's some air bubbles or some oil in there, but you can see this is the in. The arrow's coming in. You can see how it's milky, clear, milky in color, and then this is the outside. So this is probably filling up the chamber now, and this was what the color was why I was doing this project, because it didn't seem like it was filtering it really clear. So it was a little bit milky inside the window, kind of like what it looks like right now. Even after I drained it all out, there's still some inside the mechanisms inside the pump. So it's starting to come out. So we should be able to run this, leave it run until I start seeing clear come out of here, which would be the same as, you know, this clear. You can see the different colors. So this is the out hose, and it loops around and it comes into this filter. So everything that's coming out is clear and going back into focuses. This is going back into the pump. So it will come back in a few minutes and we'll see if this is clear. So we are done now. Vacuum pump is running. The oil's running. You can see this is the filtered line back here. This one is the line coming in, so it's cleaned up quite a bit. This is also the input line for this filter. You can see my finger through there. That's the output of the second filter. And this is the window in the pump. I'm a little bit above full, so I'm going to drain just a little bit out. But it's really clear in here. It's clear in this line. I have dates on all my filters and pumps. I do normally have a fan plugged in here, and I would have the fan down here blowing onto the vacuum pump. I used to have it on this side, but I have it out this way so I can have more room for my mason jars. So I gotta buy another fan because that fan is old. But I'll put the fan here and I'll blow it this way on the pump. I'll keep it a little bit cooler. Actually, having all this oil cycle through here too is going to keep it cooler too. So if you're tired of changing your oil and you want a way to make sure it stays clean, make sure that all the water is out of it. I've been doing this with one filter for 3 years now, and now I upgraded to 2 filters. This filter, when about a year, I'll take this filter, put it onto this one. This one will be disposed of, and I'll put a brand new one over here. So, if you like these videos, watch more of these videos in the link here. Subscribe to our channel, and have fun.